So this morning we've got a Timecutter Z5060 in. Customer brought it in and said that the unit wasn't driving anymore. So we're going to take a look at this and figure out exactly what's going on, and I'm going to show you how to fix that issue. Now we're getting to see more and more of these. This design has been around for quite a while and it's starting to show its age quite a bit. So if you look at the tires from the back here, you can see that the right one's towed at the bottom side, towed in probably, I don't know, a good 3 inches from the top versus the bottom, as opposed to being straight up and down. And then the left side's probably, I don't know, inch and a half towed in. Now the reason this happens is that the support bracket on the bottom, the bolts will break over time. When that happens, it'll allow the hanger brackets up top to break. So if we look down here, we've got a broken bolt on our hanger, or on our connecting bracket here. Now these are grade 8 bolts that go through the transmission, and they're supposed to hold all this kind of together to make sure that it doesn't have any issues. But one of the bolts on this side has broken off on the inside. So after that's happened, if you look up top right here, the bracket that actually holds the transmission is all that's left holding this thing to the frame. Now that's broken on this side here, and then also at the back side here. That allows this hydro just to sit in there and kind of flop around. Of course, as soon as it's not 100% level, well, in this guy's case, he got some pretty good use out of it after it was 100% level, but it'll allow both of these sides to break. This one's bent up pretty good, and then it's broken at the back side right here. There's a broken spot in this other bracket for the left-hand hanger. So in order to get this fixed up, it's not a good piece to have just hanging out on your clutch, just a piece of some sort of metal wire. In order to get this taken care of, we're going to replace the belt. The idler pulleys sound pretty bad. You shouldn't be hearing that coming from your idler pulleys when you're spinning them. That's a bad thing. So that one's in horrible shape. We've got some new idler pulleys. We've got the new support bracket. We've got a new belt. Then we've got some new grade 8 bolts to put back in there. They call them screws, 324-8s. We've got a 110-6774 belt. A couple of the 110-6775 idler pulleys. And then a couple of the hanger brackets, 110-6799 and a 110-6798. And then the support bracket, I'll put that in the description along with the rest of these again, just in case you guys need them at all. But I'm seeing this more and more often. I think this is the third one we've had in the last month and a half that's had this issue. So once that happens too, if it's just this that's broken and it doesn't look like any of your supports are broken, 9 times out of 10 they're still bent up pretty bad, and it's going to be hard to get all that back together without going ahead and replacing them. So I recommend replacing it all together, and that's what we're going to do here in this case. Obviously they're both broken in this case, so it's not exactly something you can get away from. But if you're thinking about not doing the entire thing, I'd think again, because it's probably going to need it. So first thing we're going to do is pop the belt off here for the PTO. Now that should roll across pretty easily. Shouldn't take a whole lot as long as you know what you're doing. And really just grabbing from one side and kind of pulling down and rolling. The PTO will get you there. This one seems pretty tight to roll, but it sure is. Either way, once we have that rolled off, we can go ahead and take the bolt out here, down at the bottom for the support. Now that's going to be, looks like a 14. I'll try my, well, it is a 5/8. I was going to say, I thought it might be a 5/8, but yeah, I don't want to come with that real well. Got a big old breaker bar here. Didn't want to come loose real easy. popped off that time, which is good. Just really getting that kind of out of the way at this point. When we got everything else installed, we'll go ahead and put that back in. Now this doesn't look real bad as far as the threads go. We did go ahead and estimate a new one. Most of the time when they break off, they ruin those threads, but this one actually looks halfway decent. So maybe check that out before you're ordering your parts if you're trying to save it, for sure. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get the bracket up top off also. It looks like it is a 5/8 also. I've got that nice breaker bar here, which definitely helps, especially in the case of stuff being on super tight like these are. There we go. And yeah, without some sort of leverage on it, it's not going to go very well. Let's see if we can't get a little bit better view on here. Doesn't look like we have a real good one here. I think we're pretty loose. And that piece of that bracket's just flung around for us. It's just hanging there now. So we've got that off. You want to pay attention to which side the bracket goes to. As you can see here, it goes to the inside towards the clutch. Now normally this will come right out of there because the transmission is up another 1.5 inches. But in this case, as you see here, there's not enough room for us to take it out because the pulley's in the way. So it's hitting on the actual clutch because that unit's not high enough. So at this point, we've got to either take the clutch off to get that down from there, which will give us a little bit more room and a little bit better view anyway, or we can jack this pulley up to where it's in the right position, because that'll actually bend this frame. You can see this frame here is kind of bent outwards a little ways, so the whole thing is just kind of at a pretty big angle at this point. Two options to do that. A lot of times I don't take the clutch off on these. I'll go ahead and there's a bracket here that is a little bit easier in my opinion on most of these. This bracket is the bracket that keeps the clutch from spinning here, but it's held on just by a couple bolts that are 1/2 inch up top right there that go through. And if you take that off, you don't have to take the clutch off because you can wrap the pulley just around, you know, loosen your wiring up top here and just wrap the pulley around without actually having to take the clutch off. But we're going to take the clutch off, get it out of the way since that one side's down real far at this point, and kind of go from there. So we've got it jacked up here. Now this jack job isn't exactly real well. I just jacked from the one side just to get enough room here to get the clutch off. Now what I'll usually do is I'll usually grab with a screwdriver up underneath the plug at the clutch, just enough to leverage it up so you can get it straight off. Just pulls out. Now the clutch is free as soon as we get that bolt out of the bottom. So that doesn't mean that it's going to come off easy at this point. There's a lot of these that have issues coming off. We've got a pretty good couple videos on removing it if you have a hard time removing it. I don't know how this one's going to come off. Well, didn't go quite high enough to allow me to get my impact back. There we go. And again, this is only needed to come off because of the spot over here. Now if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be bothering with it. I am going to spray a little bit of penetrating lube up there. We use the Kimball Midwest Torque CB. A lot of people say they don't like it. A lot of people say they do. When it comes to penetrating oils, get 100,000 different opinions if they make that many products. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. And honestly, any penetrating oil I've ever used has always kind of been the same. Seems like this one's going to be kind of hard to get off, so I'm going to use my method with my air hammer here. Basically just take a standard air hammer, got a flat tip on it so you don't do any damage or anything like that. And I'm just going to hit it. I'll go ahead and put this back in and start here first. There's not really anywhere good to get to the side that wouldn't damage this unit. Sometimes you can go up through at the top, but more oftentimes than not, this will work. And it comes right down and right off, so that's good. Now, someone told me once that the reason my clutch wasn't coming off was because my drive belt still had tension on it. Now, if your drive belt's putting enough tension on your clutch for some reason, that the whole housing is for some reason bent or not able to take it off, something's severely wrong. It shouldn't be the way any of it is. All right, come on off of there. Still doesn't seem like it wants to. There it goes. All right. Now what that penetrating oil did is got down right around that lip, all down in there, and lubed everything up as it was coming off. So with that vibration, it kind of moved everything along, so that's good. Okay. So we've got a nice view up top at this point. And kind of see the drive pulley. It's staying up on there. I'm not going to worry about taking it off. We can take the belt off at this point, get it kind of out of the way. You see at the back here, there is a spring sitting on that idler. Now again, I don't have this thing jacked up real well, but it is secure enough to get everything done. All right. I'm going to just push that spring off to the back through the... So now my idler pulley is free. And at this point, I'm going to take the screw out that attaches it through the frame. Now that's a 1/2 inch bolt that goes up through there, and it's the same on the other idler pulley here. They're both 1/2 inch bolts that go all the way through. Those will... So the bracket here goes up through, and so does the idler pulley one. Now if those weren't horrible, we probably wouldn't worry about replacing them. It really just depends on the condition of your unit, how many times this has been done, everything like that. So you need a 1/2 inch on the bottom and then a 1/2 inch on the top. I'm not sure where my bottom one went. There we go. Should get us most of the way there. Well, it looks like we got a 1/2 inch on this one, but the other one's not a 1/2 inch. Oh, and that actually goes into a bracket as opposed to having a nut up top, so that makes it a lot easier on this. I didn't remember that, but this ain't getting us a real good view here, is it? See if we can't get a little closer without being in my way here. good. So all we've done is taken off the idler pulley from up top here. That's given us, so that's just a 1/2 inch bolt that goes through this really bad idler. So that'll come off. Let's see what, I guess this one must be a 14. Again, you can use a 9/16. People ask all the time, well, why would you use things that aren't right for what you're doing? Well, it's always right if it's the only tool you have. That's for sure. It's the only way you can get it done. Get it done with whatever you have. Now, if you look at a, it's not a 14 either, it's got to be a 5/8. If you look at a socket that's a 12-point socket, those will, we always use 6-point sockets on everything, but those will round things off a heck of a lot more than something that's got a 6-point socket. Now, if you've got a 6-point socket on something, that's going to keep you from rounding things off, and it's going to give you a little bit better as far as the tightness on each bolt. If you're using a 12-point socket, using the correct socket does matter quite a bit more. Now this one's got a washer of some sort in between it and the housing, and then it's got another 1/2 inch on this side. Now I've got to convert right back to the 1/2 inch I just took off. All right, so this is taken off like such. Let me grab this guy. Kind of hard, the weird angle I'm at under here. Not sure exactly why, but trying to get everything in view, and just kind of a tough spot. So, all right, one idler goes back on. And you want to pay attention if any of this stuff's bent real bad or anything like that. It can happen when those belts come off, or when people try to keep using them. They should be about perfectly going from side to side. Now that that was there, I think I want to go ahead and put that other, idler back up there real quick. We'll hear shortly, I guess. I'll wait for a second. Let's put this one back up where he belongs first. You also want to make sure this spins easily on here. If it doesn't, your idler arm is not going to work real well. I don't know why I'm trying to do it that way. Definitely goes like this. You can put a little bit of a dabble of grease or penetrating oil, or we usually use penetrating grease on there. Just gets it kind of lubed up and ready to go. Take this belt off right now if we want. It's a little bit easier if you take the belt off and go ahead and put the new one on while there's not a bunch of idlers and stuff in your way. So this belt's cracked all the way down. It's got, you know, some pretty good wear marks and stuff in it. That's why we're replacing it. But if you're this far, you might as well replace that belt anyway. I mean, you don't want to have to do this again. If you don't replace the belt, have a bunch of issues. You don't want to do that again. Again, this is a 1106774. This is a Toro OEM belt. Now, a lot of people will try to use aftermarket stuff on belts and stuff like that. I don't normally mess with them. In certain instances, it's fine. You're talking like PTO belts and stuff like that. A lot of times it's okay, but dry belts is just one of those where you got so much time into doing it. I don't want to waste my time, and I have a few times. I think that came from a lot of the older Craftsman units and stuff like that. If you use aftermarkets on them, they don't want to work right. So I think that may be where my kind of distrust of some of those belts comes in. But either way, I'm not sure exactly how those belts and everything go through right this second. We'll figure that out here in just a moment. Looks like, so that's going to pull at the back side, so it's going to pull this belt this way. This may be on the other side. maybe that this belt goes here, and then this other one maybe pulls it from this side this way. Kind of what it's looking like to me at the moment. So that's the way I'm going to install it here. I'm going to go up over this like such. I'm not going to tighten this down until I make sure that that's the case, but with the spring pulling on the back side, oop, that's not going to work. We're not going to want to be right there. We're going to want to be on the inside here like such. So that's pretty well the only way that this would be able to be pulling on something, is on being on the side there. And then you've got that other pulley on the other side. If it's coming to about here, those other, oh, they don't want to come off unless you don't want them to come off. And then they'll come right down. Okay. Well. Adds another layer when you're trying to hold the pulley up too. Yeah, so that one should go right there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That's how we're gonna go ahead and install it real quick. Gosh, I'm just knocking everything everywhere, aren't I? Wow. Okay. So if you look here, and it's actually labeled clutch side, which makes it nice and easy, but if you dropped it off, a lot of times you'll be able to see, I didn't spray the top of this, I sprayed the bottom in between the clutch in here. There's always signs telling you which way this goes on. So if you get confused, pay good attention there and you'll get it back on. I'm confident in that. And your skills there. Back down good. Get back to my 5/8 real quick. Wherever in the world it went. Okay then, well, luckily I got another one right here on my little right angle. Thought I got it kind of caught underneath or something. That wasn't going to be real good. Right. So there's no key or anything that sits in here. It's got a keyway inside of it. Just put it back up, just like it came off. Turning the engine as I'm going. Oop, it's on the inside here is why it didn't want to go, but that's no big deal. I went ahead and hooked up that spring in the back, up top there. So I just got it back on my idler arm. We've got all of our pulleys installed. We're gonna go ahead and get this the rest of the way done up there. Can't get a nice good view. This darn camera keeps wanting to shut off on me. I'm gonna have to go with something different, I guess. Just 15 or 20 minutes isn't nearly enough to get anything done without your camera shutting off on an overheat. So that's GoPro for you, I guess. I did call once upon a time about it. They basically wanted me to do a bunch of different updates and this, that, and the other, you know, saying that would solve the problem. Well, it didn't. So, jumped through a bunch of hoops just to solve nothing and get nowhere. So, that's a lot of corporate stuff anymore. So, I guess I should have done a little bit more research before I purchased it. So, that's on me. not on them. I didn't realize that, you know, not moving for a short period of time or for however long was going to do that to it. So, all right. So once you get that pulley on there, you just kind of roll the whole engine. Roll it around, and that pulley will go right on there. It's usually a little bit easier because you don't have the rest of the here. I don't think these pulleys are actually 100% lined up, so they're kind of working against one another, so it's a little bit more difficult. If you're getting help, you could have someone help you turn the engine up top also. That'll usually help you from having to take all the brunt of it down here. All right, so we've got the pulleys back on. That's all ready to go. Now we need to get our hanger brackets back together. So I'm going to finish up getting this 5/8 over here off, if I can, real quick. Let's see, get us a little better view. So we already took the one off here, and we had to take the clutch off to get this out. So that's out now. That's great. End up putting that back on, of course, here in a minute. But I'm going to get this side off real quick. And again, that thing is on there, so that's not ideal. It's real hard to get another wrench up in here too. I am going to use my big old pipe here to give me a little better leverage on this, if I can anyway. Again, not ideal to get on the pulley on the back side, or on the nut on the back side, just with the angle it's at. It's a real bad angle, and this is a real bad ratchet too, I guess. Fingers are in there real good. Usually once you get it you know, loosened, it'll usually come the rest of the way off pretty easily, but it's getting to that loosened part that's the hard part in a case like this, especially since I can't get that wrench really on there. And this ratchet seems like it's only got 10 teeth. Oh, come on now. Not wanting to get on. Grab my 5/8 over here and get me another socket on it. All right. Go ahead and put another socket on this side. And now when we finally get it against there, should break us loose. Sounded like it definitely did something there. Okay. I was kind of worried about that not wanting to come out, but not really that big of a deal. Get it out of there one way or the other. So now my socket and everything's kind of caught there because it's pushing up against the pulley that we just installed. I'm just gonna grab a screwdriver, see if I can't come in here and pry it out on these. Yeah, so I think it's just because we're hanging on the side. Oh, come on now. This thing is just fighting and fighting me today, apparently. See if I can't bring that pulley down just enough to slide on, which I was able to, so that's good. Okay. I think we're gonna put this down either on something or drop it down so we can finish up getting the other side. Maybe I'll go ahead and do this side while we got it up in the air. Got a pretty good view of the top up here where we can get the other ones going. So it's just got 2 bolts left. It's got one right here that's a 14 and one right here that's a 14. I believe they're 14s anyway. We're about to find out. They are. Now these are engine mount bolts too. They go all the way through into the engine. And that's what holds the brackets on there. So you want to pay attention how those came off. Make sure you're getting the left and the right bracket the way that it should be. Okay. So the right hand bracket goes on just back like that. Once we get this last one here off. Okay. Nice and easy there with those two. And it looks like it's the so it's going to be the outside one of these two. All right. Left hand, right hand. So this should basically line up here, just like such. And it does. So it looks like it's the outside 2 holes, I believe is what it's showing us. Looks like a pretty long gap. I wonder if they have these. I wonder if these are labeled backwards or if they are backwards or what. Take a look at these here. Yeah, that looks definitely more like that piece than the other piece. So I think this one that's labeled left hand is actually this side. But then again, I don't know that is the case. Okay, I think I just had it backwards. I think it is labeled correctly. Maybe just had the thing backwards on here. Okay. Pay attention to how they come off. They usually tend to go back on a little bit smoother when you don't have a full bracket. It's easy to get lost. You just want to make sure before you tighten everything down, you get everything started. Now what I like to do in a case like this, since everything's not lined up real well at all, I like to go ahead and start everything. So on this guy, go ahead and put a bolt back in here too. And then before we start tightening all this down, I'm going to jack this side up from under the hydro here to kind of line everything up. That way I don't bend this bracket back where it's supposed to be. That's all good. We're started there for now. I'm happy with that. And again, before we tighten any of that up, I'm going to drop this side down over here. Go ahead and drop it off of the jack, and then I'm going to jack it up from this side. And we're going to do the same to here. I'm just going to remove this bracket and go ahead and start the new one real quick. So up top here, we went ahead and got the other bracket started. Got everything hand threaded in. All of our bolts up top. Now we're ready to pull the whole thing back together where it should be. Now, we did get the thing jacked up on the one side, so that's started to kind of help level everything back out, but it's not exactly where it should be quite yet. So this is what we're going to do next, is we're going to install that as soon as we get this side pulled up just a little bit further. Now we want that side pulled up a little bit further in order to keep us from to be close enough from here to here in order to get this thing fixed up. So we're going to tighten the back one first. As you could see, as that was going, that whole thing kind of leveled out a bunch as we were doing it. Now the reason we have the jack underneath it is kind of to help it pull. That way that bracket's not doing all that work itself. You don't want to put too much stress on that bracket. Alright, now that one's in there also. So we pulled that thing pretty close at this point, as far as from here to here, closer than what it was. Let's get from the back side here. Go ahead and throw us a bolt through. Now I'm just barely gonna start this with threads on the outside on that one, and then I'm gonna come over here and start this one. Now it's at a pretty big angle still. I'm gonna drop this back down, see if it doesn't level out a little bit, give me a little bit more play. So I'm just trying to level it out so I can get these started, because they're still at a pretty big angle. I mean, you want that to all go in without stripping your... Okay. It still doesn't want to start on this side, even though it looks pretty level. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. See if that levels out this side. Pretty good shape as far as the bracket went. So if you didn't see that 100%, basically all I did was slowly made sure from one side to the other was good, and we were able to start our bolt in both sides of that assembly, and we tightened up the ends on either side as we were going. Both of those up top. So next I'm going to get this one all the way up top, get him tightened up real good, get a little more light there for us. Pull that all together. I just really love this right angle for stuff like this. It works great. Not too much torque, but just enough to get everything exactly where we need it. I think I'm going to have to go on the camera side here on this one maybe, because the last one doesn't want to work. Okay. Well, we've got our nice deep well here somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it went. There it is. Looks like we're gonna have to do this one just with a good old-fashioned couple wrenches instead. I don't even want to get on there at this point. Okay, give us another 3/4 inch wrench, or I'm sorry, 5/8 wrench. I don't know why I grabbed the 3/4 straight away. Nice and tightened down. And now we've got just our bottom two. So I'm going to use my right angle and a good old pair of vice grips. Pretty well close at this point, but this so we're pulling the rest of the way. I'm going to do one side at a time just to make sure we grabbed good threads on both sides. Oops. I just wanted to get that other side started first so we didn't pull. Yeah, that's kind of, see how it's kind of grabbing and pulling, and it's not quite tight yet. So just taking away some aluminum there off of the actual housing as we're doing it. Now you want to torque the heck out of these. You want these to be real tight, otherwise they will back off over time. Now we can throw the clutch back on. It's a pretty easy process. We just put it straight back up on there. Use our 5/8 bolt right back in the bottom. I always like to try to line it up. It never works quite like it's supposed to. So it'll go just like such. The keyway is going to come around like that. Some kind of thread locker or something in it, which is kind of weird. Shouldn't really have thread locker in here. Now a little bit of anti-seize or a little bit of lube on this will help you get it off next time. I know you may not be the one who's going to take it off next time, but it helps all of us. Just throw a little bit on there. So we just lube it up real good. That penetrating lube works very well for this. Now this little tiny impact does great for a clutch. You don't want to over tighten it. This thing can't over tighten it. It's about almost perfect torque when we're checking it to make sure it's not over tightened. If you over tighten that PTO bolt, you can very well ruin the bearing in it because it uses that bolt to hold everything together. Now make sure your deck is all back on, right? Everything's lined up there. And you're just gonna roll your belt right back on. Belt's rolled back on, nice and easy. And that's it. We're all set and ready to rock as far as the assembly on that goes. The tires and everything on these units, how they bowed out real bad. If you look on this side, you can tell where it was actually rubbing. The tire was rubbing here. Now it's a good 1.5 inches, 2 inches away from that at this point, so that's all solid. Everything's good. Now is that back to 100% vertical? No, I'd say it's probably still 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch off on that right side. Left side's pretty good though. That housing that's been holding this thing over to the right the whole time, it's probably weakened a little bit and just kind of keeps it out a little ways, but for all intents and purposes, it's straight, and it's going to, you know, last for a long time again before they have any more issues. I see that a lot on these. The newer design, as opposed to having one bracket down below like this does, in between them, it's got a bracket that has a double assembly here instead of just a single. It's got a metal between the two, so like a double bracket that goes to both of these and holds it across everything together, which, you know, even if they put 2 of these bars, would have beefed that up quite a bit to keep this from happening on these. So after talking about the double support bracket that the other units come with, the updated models, got me to thinking, hey, we have another support bracket that we were going to replace, which we did, because normally the threads are busted off in one end or they're all stripped out. Well, that wasn't the case here. So what we've done is we went ahead and installed the second support bracket just to kind of beef this whole thing up a little bit and to make this, you know, a lot less likely to happen again in the future. I'm going to show you one of those other designs real quick. I've got another one here handy. But it did seem like when we tightened that one down, the tire did come back a little ways, even further than what it was, back to true. So here's one of the newer designed models, and they have a little bit different of a support bracket system here. So this system's got a support bracket that goes across, and it's got 2 grade 8 bolts that screw, you know, through a bolt into 2 spots on the hydro pumps. That way they're just better beefed up. They're gonna stay in line with one another because that whole support bracket is helping them do that, as opposed to just one support bar across there. Now, as far as the supports up top on this, they did do a little bit of changing, it looks like, which hopefully gives them, you know, some more support with that, because there's a front support that's actually part of the frame on this, as opposed to having those cheaper hanger brackets like the other unit there had. So I'm glad they're making changes as needed and getting things taken care of. Toro's usually pretty good at listening over time to certain things and what needs to be done, but that should give you everything you need to know about getting your Timecutter, you know, opposite crab walked back out. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.